Is it right that the only restriction that is in place right now is the ban on mass gathering, prohibiting gathering of more than 50 people? And why do you think, why didn't Sweden feel the need to impose a more severe restrictions as it happened in other countries?
Okay, we decided early to just take those measures that have scientific evidence for. And there are really only two restrictions you can make that show scientific evidence. One is you should wash your hands. We've known that for 150 years that it's good. And the other is keep your distance. Don't get too close to other people. These two are the main. The rest of all restrictions that you can take. Closing your borders, useless. Closing schools, probably has no effect at all. What more? Prevent people from going outside, which is really stupid. All these have no scientific evidence at all.
Mm-hmm. And what is it based on? Is it assumptions of the Swedish scientists who make up the sort of research and scientific council? This is basically your judgment that you made, that this is useless.
Yes, it's judgment. I think the weight of evidence should be with the ones who make the restrictions, who make the lockdown. They should present evidence. Why is this good? But we are being asked to produce evidence that our action is good, but we're not taking any action. So the ones who make the lockdown, they should present the evidence, and they don't.
Mm-hmm. And the judgment in the eyes of people in the UK and in Russia that basically if you don't flatten the curve and impose those restrictions, then basically the healthcare sector will be overwhelmed. Does Sweden experience any problems in terms of healthcare sector? Does it cope well with the number of cases?
It's difficult, and the healthcare is stretched, but it's managing. We still have empty beds, and we still have empty intensive care unit beds in Sweden.
One remark. So, as of now, Sweden does have spare capacity in intensive care units.
Yes.
What percentage about?
10% of the beds. Mm-hmm. But you're right. In the email you sent to me, you say that do we have a lockdown because people are doing what they are told to do without any law? And there's some truth in that. Another pillar of the Swedish strategy is people are not stupid. If you tell people what's good for them, and if you tell them it's good for other people, they do what you say. They understand. If you present it in a way that people understand, they will do what you say. Mm-hmm. You don't need police. You don't need fines. You don't need. It works anyway, and I think that's true for any country, not just for Sweden.
Psychological thing for people they feel the need to impose restrictions, but if there wasn't restriction, people would have understood that it's dangerous and would have observed these rules anyway.
Yes, exactly. You
decide how to move forward. What are the indicators that you pay attention to? Is it the healthcare capacity of the healthcare sector? Is it the rate of the disease spread? Is it the overall volume of cases? What do you look at when you decide what to do?
The first thing you said about healthcare, that we should not overburden healthcare. And of course, people in Sweden have taken restrictions by themselves, not because the authorities have said so, but because they do it. So there is less spread. We have fewer cases than we would have had if we didn't do anything. But there's no law to tell you must stay inside. But the problem for Denmark and Norway and Finland is that when they lift the restrictions, which they will have to do at some point, you can't have a lockdown forever. They will get the cases.
Mm-hmm. And
what the lockdown does, mister, is that it pushes the problem in front of you into the future. But the problem doesn't go away just because you push it a couple of months in front.
And while we are on this subject, how many Swedes, what percentage of Swedes you reckon already had the virus and developed antibodies and developed immunity to the virus?
We calculate that Stockholm, we only have data for Stockholm, not for the country, but for Stockholm we have data. And Stockholm is about 2.5 million people. And we believe that about 500,000 had the disease already. It's a very contagious disease. And it spreads very quickly. But most of the spread is between people who have no symptoms, who feel that they're not sick. They are the ones who spread the disease. And about 98.5% of everyone who is infected will not go to the healthcare, will not go to the doctor. They may have a little cold, they have a sore throat, they have headache, they have fever, they may have diarrhea, but they don't. So 98.5% of the people who get it will not notice, or notice only a little. So that's where the real spread is. Then we have a few cases who get sick, really sick. Then we have a few people who die, but it's 0.1% of the population.
Mm-hmm. And it was suggested that Sweden overall can obtain herd immunity within the next few weeks. Do you think it's plausible?
Yes. If you take, I'm talking about Stockholm, I shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
It will take a bit longer for the entire country, maybe another month or so.
Mm-hmm. And how long does this immunity last? Can virus mutate or anything like that?
There's no sign it's mutating, but there's a lot of discussion about immunity and how long it lasts. But I think it will last for this outbreak. That will be okay. It's not lifelong. You will not be immune all your life, but a year maybe, and that's enough.
Mm-hmm. And how worried is Sweden about getting the disease from other countries? You suggested basically there is no measures at the airports or at the border crossing. Does Sweden check people coming into the country?
No, why should we? I mean, all the countries in Europe, including Russia, have this epidemic at home. We don't have to care about imports. Each country has a growing epidemic by itself in its own.
Sweden isn't planning to introduce any additional restrictions.
Rather the other way around. And it's interesting now to see when countries are lifting the restrictions, the lockdown a little, so that no one thought about it when they installed. There's not one politician in Europe who talked about how do we get out of the lockdown. They put on the lockdown, but I haven't seen one sentence of discussion. Well, now we close all the schools. When do we open them again? What's the criterion for that? No one has made that. They just lockdown, and no thought about how they would get out of it.